I want to thank you all for coming today on today's session of Keeping It Real. My name is Dylan Russell. Normally, I'm joined by a co-host. Unfortunately, this time around, they were either a little too busy or unfortunately under the weather, so it's just me today, but that's okay. I'm here to keep it real with y'all, answer some important financial questions, provide some important updates regarding some summer financial aid stuff. During the summertime, it's fairly busy, so it's maybe a little difficult to get schedule appointments. But I'm here to keep it real with y'all. So if you do have any general financial questions, I'm happy to help out with that. Normally, we have a quick little public service announcement about upcoming stuff, and we will still have that, but today's primary session will be about you and your financial questions. Make sure to keep them general, though, so that way we don't give any, private information, because your privacy is important to us. So essentially, you would use the Q&A feature to ask your questions. They are completely anonymous, so feel free to think of some of those questions while I go over some little quick PSA stuff about summer financial aid, some information from our scholarship team, as well as some information from the loan team as well. Just some little important announcements. Yeah, I want to thank you all again for coming, and let's get the show on the road because time is of the essence. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and I'll be happy to get them through with you all. Sorry, I'm talking a little fast today. Normally I have someone else to kind of help out and keep me on the steady, but that's okay. So first, I want to announce a little PSA from our loan team, just something that you're all made aware of regarding federal student loans. So let's go ahead and cover that. Let's see here. Yeah, the Department of Education resumed collections on defaulted federal student loans starting May 5th, 2025. Please take action now to prevent financial consequences like tax refund, wage garnishment, or negative credit ratings, or losing financial aid eligibility, and stuff like that. It's definitely to note that if this does not concern you, don't worry too much, but if it does concern you, this is very important information, because essentially all borrowers have an obligation to repay any federal student loans that have not been repaid or are not in deferment or forbearance. So essentially this means that if you're not in school at this point in time, your federal student loans may be going on to repayment. That is if you've exceeded the 6-month grace period. So essentially, as long as you're not in school, you have a 6-month grace period before your loans go into repayment. So essentially, this is for situations where these 6 months have passed. So if you are attending the spring semester, decide to sit out summer and will be beginning in the fall, this is likely not pertinent to you because you haven't passed that 6-month grace period yet. But this could be pertinent to you if you attend in the fall semester and decide to sit out spring, decide to sit out summer, and are thinking about returning in the fall semester. So it's very important to be mindful of your situation, just so that you know whether this information pertains to you or not. But continuing on, if this situation does apply to you, please go to www.studentaid.gov to learn about those repayment options with your loan servicer, and you'll be able to contact them through the loan repayment tab. If you are default with the federal Perkins loans, you need to contact the Office of Student Accounts for assistance on that. Perkins loans has been essentially a student loan that's been defunct for quite some time now, so odds are you probably aren't related to that part of the process. But if you are one of the very few who still received Perkins loan way back in the day, definitely contact Student Accounts as they would be your main contact. Just make sure that when you sign into studentaid.gov, make sure you log into your account and user information, just so that way you can review your information and make sure that you're all good on that end. But yeah, just wanted to bring that quick PSA from the loan teams, just so that way you are informed if this is pertinent to you. So definitely keep that information in mind from the loan team, just so that way you make sure that you don't have any issues regarding your loan deferment, forbearance, or any of that. Next, I have a small update in regards to the scholarship portal from our scholarship team. They just wanted to make you all aware that unfortunately the scholarship portal for the upcoming fall semester, the 2025 fall and the spring 2026, it unfortunately did close on June 1st, but students who were selected for scholarships before the March 15th deadline, they should have been receiving emails as of June 9th. So make sure you keep an eye out on your student email for that, because if you're chosen for those type of scholarships, you have 3 weeks to accept it in your financial aid portal under your scholarship apps. So make sure that you do that as soon as you can, because if you don't accept it, they may go to someone else. So log into your donor-funded scholarship portal just to see if you were selected in order to do what you need to do in order to accept those loans, accept those scholarships. Sorry, not loans. Accept those scholarships, just so that way you can have them placed on your account for the upcoming fall 2025 and spring 2026 semester. So that was just a little quick PSA in regards to our scholarships team. They were unfortunately unable to join us today. Nathan, Trey, always a good co-host, always getting on tracks with talking, asking the questions, all that good stuff. Let's see here. We will be answering questions, so if you have them, be sure to type them. You can use the Q&A function. All questions are completely anonymous, so feel free to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and start answering some of them now, because I know during this time, a lot of times it's maybe difficult to schedule a financial aid appointment. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the timing of things, this is often time where it's considered to be our peak time, where students from the spring semester, students from the summer semester, and students for the upcoming fall semester are all scheduling appointments about financial aid. So unfortunately, that does oftentimes cause a bit of a large number of appointments. So if you have those general financial questions, we often like keeping it real to kind of act as a means to answer those general financial aid questions, just in case it may be difficult for you to schedule that appointment and get that type of help. Just please be made aware that, once again, they will be general questions. If they are, unfortunately, very personal, very private questions that regards to your specific account that does require specific information, you would, unfortunately, have to schedule an appointment, send an email, or unfortunately visit one of our offices at either the Commerce campus or at the Dallas campus. Unfortunately, due to privacy reasons, we are not able to share that personal information, and I wouldn't want to do that anyways in this public format. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with those questions and answers. I already see a fair bit of them coming up, so let's go ahead and get started with that. The first question, are there any scholarship or financial opportunities for graduate international students? That is a good question. So I did briefly gloss over it. Unfortunately, the main means of financial aid would be those scholarships. Unfortunately, the scholarship portal did close on June 1st. So if you haven't applied for it, that would be the primary means of getting financial aid for the upcoming fall semester as an international student. It is still possible to get financial aid as a non-citizen. There are some, FAFSA situations where an eligible non-citizen can do a FAFSA. Unfortunately, without looking at your accounts, I'm not able to actually verify if that fits your situation or not. In that sort of situation, you would need to contact a financial advisor to review your situation, just to see if you do qualify for those non-citizen FAFSA questions. Because if you do, then you are able to do the FAFSA even as a non-citizen under the eligible non-citizen format. So unfortunately, if you haven't applied for scholarships, that would be the main means to do it. If you have, then keep an eye on your account, because the May 15th scholarships have been getting posted as of June 9th. So keep an eye on your emails, check your scholarship portals for those notifications on those type of scholarships. So that's a little bit of depend, but definitely reach out to us if you think you qualify for the eligible non-citizen for the FAFSA, because if you do, we can help you out with that process to see what you need to submit in order to get that processed. But that is a very good question. Let's see here. Second question. How will I know if I receive financial aid from Summer 2 if the system is down at TAMUC? That's a little interesting question. Our systems are not currently down. It could be a couple of things. This is probably one of those more personal questions, but it can pertain to others. So if this is one of those general sort of situations, then it may be your situation. It could be we don't have your 2024-2025 FAFSA on file. So the summer semester is a little weird, but it's an extension of the fall 2024, spring 2025 semester. So it uses the 2024-2025 FAFSA. So if you've done a FAFSA for the 2025-2026 period, that's good, but that would be for the fall semester and spring semester and technically next summer semester. So we wouldn't be able to process it exactly for the summer period. So make sure that your FAFSA is done for the 2024-2025 period, just so that way we can receive it and process it. Normally it takes a few business days in order for us to receive that FAFSA. So if it was done kind of recently, like on Friday, it's probably still possible we haven't received it yet. Normally it takes 3 to 5 business days for us to receive a FAFSA. Typically the Department of Education doesn't process things over the weekends. So if you've done it like Friday afternoon, odds are we probably wouldn't have it just yet. just because they would actually start doing that process on Monday, and it still hasn't been that entire 3 to 5 day process. That could be a situation. It could be a situation where you, let's see, what would be another sort of situation? It could be a situation where you may be in the wrong aid year. So if you have done multiple FAFSAs for the 24, 25, and 25, 26, if you've done the 25, 26 first, odds are your FAFSA, like your FAFSA information on your student aid portal, like your financial aid portal, will be defaulting to the 2025, 2026 aid year. So you may have to switch it to the 24, 25 aid year in that sort of situation. So make sure you're looking at the right one to see if you have your FAFSA. It could be that sort of situation. It could be another situation if you're only for summer 2. At this point, summer 2 only students may not be packaged just yet, just because earlier students were still able to enroll in summer 1 courses. So generally, once we package for financial aid, if you add a class or something else within the period, like for summer 1 when you're summer 2 only initially, it's not an automatic repackage. So if you're summer 2 only, we typically hold that a little bit until students can't add summer 1 classes anymore, just so that way students won't be able to be packaged for summer 2 and then enroll in a summer 1 class, and that messes their entire financial aid package for the summer 1, summer 2 period. So it could be a situation like that, but I believe that the summer 1 enrollment date has ended, so I do know that the summer 2 is in that ongoing process. So if you are a situation of summer 2 only, you should be seeing your financial aid packages really soon. So make sure that you've done that 24-25 FAFSA. 25-26 will be good, but that's for the next fall, next spring, next summer, and make sure you're in the right aid year. Without looking at your accounts, I'm not sure what the situation is exactly, but hopefully that was able to answer that question and see if that may fit your general scenario. But that's a very good question. Let's see here, another question. Are there any grants or scholarships available for grad students seeking a degree in education this summer and fall? Yeah, it would depend on a few things. So generally, grant eligibility is based off your FAFSA information. An unfortunate truth is that graduate students don't have too much opportunities when it comes to federal grants. There is that possibility, but a lot of them are first come, first served, so if the FAFSA wasn't completed in a timely manner, it is possible that those grant funds have already been exhausted. So it kind of depends on your specific situation. Unfortunately, without looking at your accounts, I can't see what your scenario is. But I would just make sure that you've done the FAFSA for the 24-25, because we wouldn't be able to package you for that federal student aid for summer without that. If you're also attending the fall semester, packaging for the fall semester won't enter towards the end of the summer period, generally because we have to factor in some things called aggregate loan limits. So essentially, all students have an aggregate limit on how much financial aid they can receive within their lifetime. So if a student is attending summer, we're not going to package for the fall semester until summer has fully dispersed, and there won't be like any sort of enrollment changes or anything to their summer financial aid, just so that way we know for sure that students will be within their aggregate limits for the upcoming fall spring semesters. We want to avoid situations where students gets packaged for fall, but if they use all their eligibility for their lifetime in the summer semester, then we have to take back that fall financial aid. So if you plan for that after it's been packaged, and then we see that you've exceeded your limits by being notified by the Department of Education and NSLDS, the National Student Loan System, data system, then that's not very good. So generally, for students who are enrolled in both summer and fall, we wait towards the end of summer just to make sure that all their financial aid for summer has settled, and we know exactly what they're eligible for the fall semester before we package for that. For scholarships, that would be through the donor-funded scholarship portal. Unfortunately, it did close as of June 1st, but I do recommend looking for outside scholarships. If the original people who asked for the questions regarding scholarship aid are still here, that is also applicable to you. So if you've find outside scholarship loan lenders through outside organizations, we can still process those scholarships towards your account as well. So I do recommend looking online. We do have some sources online on our website regarding scholarships, so that may be a good head start. You wouldn't be limited to those scholarship places, but I would just advise caution when you're looking, just because you want to avoid those sort of things. So if you find a place that's asking for you to pay for scholarships, as a general rule, I would probably say to avoid that. Most scholarship websites do require accounts, but they wouldn't require you making a paid account or providing payment information on that. So I would just be mindful if you're looking for outside scholarships, but those would also be available opportunities for both this summer and for the fall. I would just advise that depending on what you find, they may have their own periods of when they disperse those funds or give you those funds. So I would just make sure you know what period you're applying for those outside scholarships. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up our website real quick and bring out some places where you can look for these outside scholarship informations, just so that way you'd be able to kind of see that, and that may be a head start. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. Let me go online, pull that information real quick. I will be putting it in the chat. So you should be able to see that information once I put it there, but I'll also be sharing my screen, so that way you would be able to see that as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Unfortunately, my co-hosts aren't here, so you are able to raise your hand. So I would recommend raising your hand once you're able to see it, just so that way I know you're able to see my screen information. So let me go ahead and do that real quick, just so that way you can see that information. All right. Are you able to see that information? Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. So this is our website. The link directly links to it. You would have to scroll down a little bit. It does talk about some scholarship opportunities, some donor-funded scholarship opportunities. That would be through the scholarship portal. Just once again, unfortunately, it did close June 1st, so that wouldn't be applicable at this point in time, but it may be something for you to save for when it opens up again later. Typically opens every October 1st, so I would keep an eye out for that, but that will be for the next cycle. So definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, there's also this as a type of scholarship. The home rotate is fairly unique though, because it's only done for students in the final 3 credit hours. So if you're in your graduating semester and you have a SAP OK status, meaning you're meeting all financial aid, satisfactory academic progress requirements, I recommend this to you. It may be able to help you. Generally, it doesn't result in a refund, but it is designed to hopefully pay for your semester charges for those final 3 credit hours. So I do recommend looking into it if it's applicable, but once again, it's only for your final 3 credit hours. So if that's your situation, that may be able to help. But if it's not your situation, it's important to keep in mind, because if you are in your final 3 credit hours, generally students are not eligible for federal student aid, so this would be your best shot of receiving some form of assistance for that final 3 credit hours. But yes, here we have the outside scholarships. It gives information on exactly what you need to do in order to look for them, browse for them. And then we have some websites on our account. I personally had experience with Unigo back when I was a student a long time ago, so that's definitely a legitimate scholarship website. But that may be something just for you to look into. If you're curious, some of these may not be applicable to you, like the military stuff, the Nursing Explorer. Some of those may not be applicable, but I would still give them a look for things more general, like scholarships.com, Unigo, that sort of stuff, just to see if there's any pending outside scholarships on those websites that you may be applicable for. Definitely can't hurt to look. So I'm going to leave that there for now, but if we get more questions, I may pivot off to something else. But I'm going to leave it there for now, just so that way you can see those type of scholarships. But that's a very good question. All right, next question. I was awarded a scholarship through my scholarship universe. Is this available to use for my summer 2 portion? That is a good question. So it kind of depends on your situation. It depends on what exactly that scholarship was applied for. So when you get those scholarships through Scholarship Universe, they often have sort of dates for when those scholarships are applicable. So it may be something that you would need to look into with our scholarship department. Unfortunately, our representative is not here today, so unfortunately he's not able to give a more detailed answer, but generally I would check with them to see if it can. Oftentimes it depends on who your scholarship lender is, who's the one who's awarding the scholarship, because it kind of depends on how they give us instructions. Sometimes they're like, XYZ dollar amounts for this semester, or just like, oh, here's a blank check and it has no instructions. Generally, when we receive those, typically if they don't give us the semester, they give us the aid year. So if they give us a 25-26 year, odds are it couldn't be used for summer too. So it kind of depends on what their instructions detail. So if it says for summer, then it should be able to be done for summer. But what I would recommend is getting in touch with our scholarship team just to see if they can look into that scholarship and see what semester it's for. Because if it does give us that flexibility, then we should be able to. But if it doesn't give us that flexibility and says, oh, it's for a 25-26 period, that would be for the fall 25 and spring 26 period. And we wouldn't be able to do that. So definitely check with them just to see if there's like any specific instructions to see what they could be done in regards to those scholarships. But very good question. All right, next question. If we apply for the scholarships before June 1st, when will we find out? I am unfortunately not too sure about that. But I do know that for the March 15th deadlines, those scholarships have been ongoing. So for the June 1st one, I imagine they're still in that review process because the scholarship committees do have to review the different applications just to see, who's eligible for the scholarships. So that may take a little bit of time. I am sorry that I don't have that definitive answer for you in regards to when they will find out about those, but I do recommend contacting the scholarships office. Let me go ahead and put in their general email out for you, just so that way you can, give them an email. Just go ahead and see if they can give you that good answer. I know a lot of our emails have been changing, but the @teamuc.edu email is still valid, and so let me go ahead and give that to you as well, just so that way you would be able to see that information. So let me go ahead and pull that up real quick. Oh, don't need to do that. Scholarships at teamuc.edu. All right, there we go. I was hoping they'd have a directory so I could just show you that directory, but unfortunately they do not. But that's okay. Oh, I'm just blind. It's right here. Sorry about that. See, this is why everyone needs a co-host when they do these things. But unfortunately, I'm still here for you. And unfortunately, I don't have that co-host. That's what I meant. Anyways, we'll go to the next question. Let's see here. I applied for the general scholarship by June 1st deadline for the fall semester. When can I hear to expect something? Very similar to the previous question. Unfortunately, I don't have that direct answer, but I do have the scholarship email in the chat. So I would recommend giving them a heads up just to see exactly when you'll be expecting to hear back from them. I do know the ones from the March 15th deadline have been getting their decisions, during this time frame. Specifically, they got a set of emails on June 9th. So hopefully soon, but it'll depend on how fast they review those applicants. But definitely contact the scholarship office just to go ahead and see, if they have a more detailed answer or give you a more definitive time frame on that. Unfortunately, I couldn't give you the best of answers for that, but definitely follow through with them just so you can get that information. All right, next question here. My summer classes haven't been paid. I did submit and accept the plus loan offer and did the PN. Nothing's showing up. Unfortunately for that, you would have to schedule an appointment, because the only thing I could think in that sort of situation without looking is that maybe the application was done for the 2025-2026 period, or your enrollment is not reflective of 6 credit hours. Those would be general reasons why something wouldn't disperse, or if it was done within a recent time frame. But unfortunately, without knowing your account information, I'm not able to answer that at this time. Definitely see if you can schedule an appointment soon. As soon as you're able to, send an email to our email, which I'm going to go ahead and type here, over here, fao.web@etamu. I keep on trying to type in teamuc.edu. Old habits die hard, I guess. But yeah, so that's our general email. So I do recommend emailing that to see if they can give you an answer for that. I just want to apologize in advance. This is unfortunately what we consider to be our peak time, where all the levels of students are emailing, scheduling appointments. So we are sending those emails out as soon as we can. But if there is a slight delay, I do apologize for that. But yeah, definitely send that information up to us. See if you schedule an appointment. If you live locally to the office, we should be able to see you there as well. Or if you live closer to the Dallas campus, they also have a financial aid office over there. So hopefully they would be able to help you as well, depending on which one you visit, in regards to that. But good question, but we'll try to keep it a little more general, just so that way you can help out those general questions. First-time student for graduate program, no financial aid. I would make sure you've done the 2024-2025 FAFSA application. graduate students can get financial aid, but you would make sure that you're doing the correct FAFSA. This shouldn't be an issue anymore, but I do know that if you were a undergraduate student in the fall-spring semester and are moving into a graduate student in the summer semester, you would have to make a correction to the FAFSA application to indicate your new graduate student status. So if that is your situation, I do recommend making a FAFSA correction to change that undergraduate information to graduate level information in case that's your scenario. It's fairly common for students who graduate in spring and then attend summer not to make that correction. But definitely see if you're able to do that if that is your situation. If not, I would just make sure that you do that 24-25 FAFSA as soon as you're able to, for two reasons. One, the summer one drop date is on June 17th, so that's next week, right around the corner. So if you haven't done the FAFSA yet, I do recommend contacting student accounts to see what you can do to keep your classes, so that we can keep in them without being dropped for non-payment in regards to that. But also, the FAFSA for the 24-25 period closes on June 30th. So if you're attending the summer 2 semester and you haven't done the FAFSA yet, you have until June 30th to do it. I don't recommend waiting that long because, if there's a maintenance or something that happens during then and it closes on June 30th, you may be out of your ability to do a FAFSA for the summer 2 period. So if you're attending summer 2, but not summer 1, make sure you do that 24-25 FAFSA as soon as you can because it's June 12th. That's only 18 days left until June 30th, and you don't want to wait till the very end before you can do it in order to be offered financial aid. How long does it take to know if your appeal has been reviewed? That is a good question. Unfortunately, it kind of depends on the student situation. So, generally, without looking at your account information, the financial aid appeal process, if that's what you're referring to, is essentially a 3-step process. So essentially, students submit a financial aid appeal. It's reviewed initially to see if you are on a financial aid suspension or not. It is fairly common for students who think they're on a suspension to submit an appeal, but they're not actually on a financial aid suspension. So there's an initial review to see if the student is truly on a suspension or not. After that point, it goes to the student's academic advisor to build something called an educational plan, if you're an undergraduate student. Graduate students is a little different. We'll go into that as soon as I'm done with the undergraduates. So the undergraduate students, they have to build an educational plan with their academic advisor. So if part of the appeal form is that it recommends students to make an appointment with their academic advisor, so that way they can have that meeting and build that educational plan. So without looking at your account, it could be a situation where the appeal was submitted, but if you haven't met your advisor yet, it could be sitting in that second step, waiting for you to meet in order to have that educational plan created for you to follow. Because essentially, when the student's on a financial aid suspension, they have to have this education plan in order to be your roadmap into getting back into satisfactory academic progress standing, into meeting SAP, as we like to call it. Financial aid, we love our acronyms. But that's something that's necessary for undergraduate students. So if that's your situation, I recommend contacting your academic advisor to see. If it's not an undergraduate situation, but instead a graduate student, it will depend. If as a graduate students were put on an academic suspension and had to get an academic reinstatement letter, you would need to include that in your financial aid appeal. Essentially, the graduate school doesn't opt into the education plan component and instead only gives students the academic reinstatement letter. Fortunately, financial aid, we don't have privy to that letter, so when graduate students submit their appeals, there's a section on the form that asks them to submit that reinstatement letter, because that will essentially supplement your education plan replacement. Because essentially it tells you what classes you need to take, what GPA you need to take, that sort of situations. So if you're a graduate student who submitted the appeal prior to that point, it's possible that it can't proceed just yet because we're missing that important information. So if you did that, I recommend submitting that academic reinstatement letter to our office. You would be able to use the fao.web email that I listed in the chat as a means to submit that information. Just so that way they can have quick, easy access to it, because that way they would know what classes you need to take and what you need to do in order to get back in good academic standing with the graduate school and with financial aid. If it's not that, then essentially the financial aid appeals team will have to review your situation themselves and see what needs to be done to fix your completion of hours rate, because that's another component of the financial aid satisfactory academic progress requirements for financial aid appeals. So that's something that is done internally. So once they're done with that, they'll be able to proceed with everything. Just make sure in your financial aid appeal submissions, both as an undergraduate and as a graduate student, you include supporting documents. Sorry about that. My headphones just turned off. Are you able to hear me? Please raise your hand if you can hear me again. Okay, perfect. Yeah, my headphones just went. Yeah, whatever. But that's okay. But yes, so recommend that you have that supporting documentation because that is very important for them to approve your financial aid appeal. So if there's no supporting documentation, odds are that they are, in that review process, because unfortunately everything financial aid does is heavily audited by federal auditors in regards to federal funds. So it could be a situation where they're discussing things to see how they can improve it and defend it in the decision of an auditor. So it could be a situation like that. So the more documentation you have, the more ability they are to able to work with your financial aid appeals. So I would see if it's any of those sort of situations. So if you just recently submitted your appeal and didn't include supporting documentation, if it's not your first one, it may be that sort of situation. So I encourage you that if you haven't submitted your appeals, do so with that supporting documentation as well. Yeah, a lot of things go on to these processes, but we're going strong. There's still a lot of questions, so let's go ahead and get started on the rest of them. We are a little bit over time, but just due to the number of questions I see, we'll be going a little over time just to see if we can answer all of them and help you all out. But yeah, I still see someone's hand is raised. I do recommend putting the question inside the question and answer. It is completely anonymous, so we won't see who does it or who sending it. So I do recommend doing that. But if you're just raising your hand just to say hi back. Sorry. But anyways, next question. Are the scholarship notifications sent all at once? I received a scholarship notification, but I'm not sure if more will come later as I applied to many scholarships. To my understanding, it depends on the committee themselves. So it's possible they may send some in batches, but I'm not entirely sure. Generally, to my understanding, unfortunately, scholarships has been separated from financial aid, which is why we have Nathan/Trey be the scholarship representative. So please forgive me if some things have changed since that separation. But generally, to my understanding previously, if a decision was made at that point, they would send that communication. But if a group of decisions were made at the same time, they would send them as a batch. But generally, if you receive that scholarship notification, I recommend acting up on it because scholarships only have 3 weeks before they go off to someone else. So if you are expecting more scholarships, I would still recommend accepting that scholarship because you can't have too much in scholarships. If you have other forms of financial aid, such as federal student loans, depending on your cost of attendance budget, we may need to reduce those loans in order to fit more scholarships, but your scholarships themselves won't be affected because you applied for them, you've earned them, and you're selected for them. So there's no penalty to accepting the scholarships you've been awarded. So I do recommend doing that as soon as you're able to, just so that way you can still have them on file. Alrighty, let's go ahead and go to the next question. Let's see here. I applied for scholarships on June 1st before the portal closed. Will I still be considered? Yes. You definitely will be considered for the 25-26 period because as long as the portal's open, you're free to do it. Because as soon as that portal closed, at that point, it would be a little too late. But as long as it's on June 1st, prior to the end of the day, so like June 1st, 11:59 p.m. would technically be the very end of it. So if you've done it before that time frame, then yeah, you've done it on time. So I would just recommend to, unfortunately, just keep an eye on your accounts. I know that some communications have gone out, but odds are it's only been about like a week and a half since it initially closed. So they're probably still in that review process of determining who's getting the scholarships for that cycle. But I'd still keep an eye on it. I did post the scholarships email in the chat, so I do recommend getting them, a quick question to see if they can confirm your status. They probably can't tell you if you've gotten anything yet, especially if it's in that review process, but they can still confirm, oh, hey, you're in that review process, because that lets you know that everything was submitted on time and that you're good in that review process. So I do recommend doing that. That's a very good question, though. Let's see, when will the financial aid and awards that I got from the previous year etc., the GPA awards come in. Oh, if it's in regards to the scholarship renewals and things like that, that may depend on your current enrollment. If you're currently enrolled in the summer semester, odds are it won't be till the end of summer where those things are factored in for the upcoming fall semester. Generally, we do packaging for the fall semester if students are enrolled in the summer period towards the end of it, because we do have to factor in aggregate and annual limits. So some forms of financial aid, such as federal student loans, and even the Pell Grant, have lifetime limits. So if a student is enrolled in summer, we kind of have to wait for the summer financial aid period to kind of settle before we actually do anything for the upcoming fall semester. So that could be your situation. But generally, at the end of the spring semester, I believe it was around like May 15th-ish is when we ran our Satisfactory Academic Progress status, which lets us know what exactly you did in that semester. So if you completed the spring semester, you likely already had your SAP status reviewed. So if it's just about the offering part of things, it likely won't be until it's a little closer to the fall semester after summer has settled a little bit. But that's a very good question, though. Thank you very much for that. Let's see, we have another question. Is there any help for non-degree graduate students who already hold a master and is a teacher in a local Texas school district? Non-degree. So it kind of depends. Generally, if a student is a non-degree student, they may not be eligible for financial aid. Some non-degree graduate certificates can be eligible, but those are more departmental based. I know the College of Business graduate certificates are financially eligible, but generally the other ones are not. So it kind of depends on what type of graduate certificate, if you're doing that, if that is what type of degree you're doing. If you're just doing a standard non-degree student, generally your best form of financial aid would be scholarships, or it would be a private education loan. Generally, students have to be in a degree-seeking program in order to be eligible for federal student aid. So if you're just in a general non-degree program, odds are you're not going to be eligible for federal financial aid. So applying for scholarships, paying out of pocket, or private education loans would be your best shot. Concerning private education loans, that's actually something that's on our website as well. So let me go ahead and do that. Oh no! Let's go ahead and go back here. Don't know why that happened. But you see, loans. I cannot type at all when people are watching me. Sorry about that. Federal student loans. Maybe they're going through maintenance. That's... Looks like they may be updating the website at this point, so I'm sorry about that. Let me stop sharing my screen, because that's certainly interesting. But yeah, looks like they're updating the website, but there is a section on our website under the loans section that you can look for private education loans. That was very awkwardly timed. I am sorry about that. But yes, there is something called private education loan. We do have information on our website about that. Essentially, they're loans from outside loan lenders. These could be banks, credit unions, or just organizations that deal in student loans. Typically, they have their own requirements and are not bound by federal requirements, which would normally require a degree-seeking program. So that may be an option as well. They have their own interest rates. They have their own payment plans. So I do recommend looking in that information just to see if any of them fit your needs. Because if they do, then you can definitely apply that and receive those private education loans even without being in a degree-seeking program. So hopefully that was able to help at least seek those options available for you in your non-degree program. I already completed the FAFSA a while ago. What do I do next? I would recommend checking to see if you've, it kind of depends, if you're attending for the summer or if you're attending for the upcoming fall semester. If you're attending for summer, I would make sure you've done the 2024-2025 FAFSA. If you have, we should have received it, but if you hadn't done it yet and done the 25-26, that would be for the upcoming fall semester. So if you're attending summer, we're not able to use the 24-25 FAFSA. So, excuse me, I would make sure that you've done the right FAFSA for the right year. After you've done that, you would need to log into your MyLeo account. So this wouldn't be like your MyLeo online with your D2L. It just, your MyLeo account, you would use your campus-wide ID and your password to log in. From there, you need to go to the student resources. And essentially from there, you need to scroll down till you see a section that says your financial aid, and you need to select there. If you've done the correct FAFSA for the correct year, and if you haven't done it very recently, because it typically takes around that 3 to 5 days for us to receive it. Essentially, you should be packaged for that financial aid, and you'd be able to review, accept, or decline your financial aid at that point in time. So I'd recommend checking on that. If you don't see that, then there may be something else going on in your account that we would need to review for. So that would require that one-on-one situation to see what exactly is going on and how we can resolve that. But yeah, definitely recommend checking if you've done the correct FAFSA, depending on what semester you're attending, and checking your financial aid portal to see if you need to do anything, because if you've done it, you may have financial aid offers in your account that you would just review, accept, or decline at your choosing. So hopefully that's able to help. If it's not, and if it does require that personal one-on-one situation to review your account, then we'll be able to do that. Let's see, on Monday, they told me that it was down on Monday. Not sure about that. Yeah, I mean, I've worked here, and I didn't know of any downtime. I know there are some times where we were doing maintenance and batch processing, so it could have been a situation like that, because generally when we package the students, it's temporarily made invisible, just so that way the students don't mess with anything while we're in the middle of that packaging process. So it could have been a situation where it was that, but it wasn't actually down, unless it was a website like that. I haven't noticed that until that occurred. But yeah, in regards to like the financial aid systems, there hasn't been any downs or anything like that. But we do routinely go through packaging processes where some things just may be invisible to you as we're packaging, just in that sort of situation where, things don't get, accepted or declined while we're doing that mass packaging. So it could have been a situation like that. Not 100% sure. I'm seeking 18 hours on computer science so I can teach dual credit in high school. If you're doing dual credits, generally dual credit students wouldn't be eligible for financial aid, but you're able to do a dual credit program. And that's a little outside of financial aid's area because, you wouldn't be receiving financial aid for doing dual credit courses while in high school. But yeah, we do have those type of resources. So definitely check with the, I believe it's the admissions office in regards to the dual credit acceptance to see what you need to do in regards for that. Unfortunately, that really wasn't too much of a question, as it was awkwardly phrased, so hopefully that's what you were inquiring. Yeah, there we go. Let's go ahead and go to the next question now. I'm currently doing summer classes. How long does it usually take for financial aid to show up on your account? It would depend. It would depend on a few things. If you've already been packaged financial aid, you would need to accept things in your MyLeo account. Make sure you've done all necessary requirements. Some forms of summer financial aid, like the summer set-aside grant, summer TPEG, they do require some additional documentations at times if you didn't receive them before in the fall-spring period. So make sure you've done all those necessary requirements for them to disperse. Once financial aid has dispersed to your accounts, it normally takes student accounts, 2 to 3 business days for it to process towards your bank account. So it could be something like that where it was accepted and it needs that 2 to 3 day time frame in order to disperse to your student accounts and then to your bank account. So it could be something like that. It could be other things. It could be that if you're not enrolled in enough credit hours, the financial aid won't disperse. The rule is still the same, so you need to be enrolled in 6 credit hours in summer classes in order to be eligible for financial aid. So if you're only doing 3 credit hours in summer 1 and you're not enrolled in another summer 1 class or not enrolled in a summer 2 class, you wouldn't be eligible for that financial aid that's been put on your account. Generally, our system just looks for enrollment to package, so it doesn't look at the number of credit hours. It just says, oh, they're enrolled, because summer is very fluid. Students can still add, still drop classes in summer 2 at this point, so summer is super fluid. So if it sees enrollment, it packages based off that. So it could be a situation where if you're not in enough credit hours, it won't be able to disperse. Unfortunately, without actually looking at your accounts, I'm not 100% sure of what the situation would be, but I would just make sure that the enrollment's correct, if you've accepted your financial aid, because some financial aid you still would need to accept. If you intended fall, spring, for example, you would need to accept summer. Generally for fall, spring, if you've accepted fall, spring is automatically accepted. For summer, it's technically an extension, it's technically different, so you would need to accept things again. So I would recommend doing that as soon as you can if you haven't already done so, if that's your situation. can I ask if someone's looking for a roommate who wants to live on campus? I would recommend reaching out to the Residential Living and Learning Department for that. Unfortunately, Financial Aid's not really too involved with the housing section of things, so I would check with Residential Living and Learnings just to see, what you need to do in order to see if you can get a roommate. It's good that you asked, but unfortunately, I'm not able to directly help, so I just recommend going to the Residential Living and Learning Department to see what their process is exactly in order for you to have that roommate. Good question. Let's see. I accepted financial aid offer for the semester 24-25, but I can't find any information in my financial portal relating to that. If it's in regards to the fall-spring period, like the fall 24, spring 25, unfortunately that period has ended, and once the period ends, we can't process financial aid for that period anymore. So unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure if that's what you're referring to, because it just says semester 24-25. So if that's pertaining to the fall 24 and spring 25, if you just recently accepted it now, unfortunately it won't be able to apply to your account because the fall-spring period is over. If it's for the summer, what you can do is that if you accept them in your financial aid offer section, you can go to the home page. In the home page of the financial aid portal, that'll tell you if you have any missing requirements. So if you accepted federal student loans in the summer, for example, and haven't done entrance counseling or master promissory notes, that would tell you that you would need to do them. So it could be that sort of situation. But unfortunately, without being able to look at your account, I can't 100% verify. But that could be your situation. If it is, I hope that I was able to answer that question. If not, definitely send us an email, see if you schedule an appointment with us, so that way we can have that deep dive and get a little more information to see what exactly is going on in that sort of situation. I hope that I was able to help. Let's see here. What are the options for international students? We briefly addressed this earlier, but the main form of financial aid for international students would be scholarships. If a student is an eligible non-citizen, it could be the FAFSA, and it could be a private education loan as well. So it kind of depends on your situation. If you are an eligible non-citizen who can do the FAFSA, then that would be my primary recommendation for federal financial aid. Otherwise, it'd be the scholarships, but unfortunately, our main scholarship portal did close as of June 1st, so if you haven't applied for scholarships already, you wouldn't be able to do so, aside from the outside scholarships. So I did post a link into it. Hopefully it works, because I was browsing the website earlier and it errored out in some places, so they may be doing some updates. But I do recommend checking that link in the chat for those scholarships, because that does have a link to outside scholarships, so I recommend looking to those as well for potential scholarship opportunities. So hopefully that's able to answer that question for there. Yeah, we have a lot of questions. I'm probably going to go all the way until 3 because I've already been about 20 minutes over time, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you have all these questions, so I'm hoping these answers can help you, even though I'm not able to actually look into your account to see what it specifically is going on, but hopefully these general answers are able to help you out. But let's go ahead and go to the next one as well. Once I'm awarded my loan money, do I take care of my tuition balance, or will you automatically apply it? That's a good question. So as soon as you've done the loan requirements and the financial aid loan money disperses, it will disperse automatically to your student account balance. So whatever you accept in regards to federal student loans will first disperse to whatever your institutional charges are, so like tuition, fees, housing, meal plan if you have those, any sort of balance on your account. It will first go to there. After that's been processed, essentially what will happen is that depending on what you accepted versus what was on your account, student accounts may process something called a student refund. That refund only occurs if what you accepted is greater than your actual balance, though. You would also need to set up that refund selection in your MyLeo apps, so that way student accounts has your bank account information, so that way they can set it up to deposit to your bank account. So that would happen in the event of your federal student loans being greater than your tuition and fee balance on your student account. If it's not greater, it will still go to your student account balance, but it may not fully pay for everything in that scenario. So you may need to essentially work with student accounts to see if there's a remaining balance on your account. Check to see if you have other forms of financial aid on your account that you haven't accepted yet. Definitely prioritize grants if you have those. Or if you need to resolve the difference out of pocket, it would be that situation as well. Depending on your cost of attendance budget, You may also have the potential eligibility for a private education loan, but you would need to look out that private education loan, do the application, find what type of loan you're interested for, and have that applied to your account that way. So it kind of depends on your situation, but generally, disperses first and does its best to resolve it, and depending on whether it can or cannot, several things will happen. So hopefully that was able to answer that question. Let's see here. If you have already applied for a scholarship before the deadline, but no scholarship has been awarded yet, is it too late to be awarded a President's Honor Scholarship? The President Promise Scholarship is a little different. That's more based off your FAFSA information. So it does depend on some information. It depends on like your transcript information. It depends on your SAI data on your FAFSA. So it's not necessarily something through the scholarship portal, so you don't have to worry about that. But it does depend on your general eligibility requirements through your admission application and your FAFSA. So if you're applying for the upcoming fall semester and we have your FAFSA on file, it is possible that we have the indicator showing that you match for the promise, depending on the time frame from when we received your FAFSA and whether you qualified for it. So I would recommend checking your MyLeo account to see if you see that indicator. If not, you can check with a financial aid representative, and they should be able to review your account to see if you did qualify for it within your admissions information and your FAFSA application information. Because it does look at your FAFSA data. You do have to be federal Pell eligible if you submitted a FAFSA. You would also have to have an appropriate AGI, which is the adjusted gross income. So definitely make sure that all that information is submitted just to see if you qualify for that promised scholarship. Yeah, very good question. But yeah, it does need that personal deep dive to see your situation. I just recently enrolled into the graduate program, started summer 1. Can I receive FAFSA to cover the tuition? It would depend on your aggregate limits to see where you are in that, but yes, you can do the FAFSA for the summer 1 period. You need to make sure that's the 2024-2025 FAFSA. Or if you recently graduated from an undergraduate degree, make sure you update your FAFSA information for the 24-25 period to reflect that of a graduate student. So I would just make sure that you've done that, because as long as you've done that and you're in 6 credit hours, you would be generally meeting the financially eligible requirements, especially if you're a new graduate student. So I would make sure you've done that. Make sure that you are fully admitted. If you are provisionally admitted, you are unfortunately not eligible for federal financial aid. So I do recommend checking with the graduate school, checking on your account to see if you're either conditionally admitted or if you're fully admitted, because as long as you're one of those, you are financially eligible. But if you're provisionally admitted, then unfortunately you are not for that period and would need to get that resolved before you can be packed for financial aid, even if you've done a FAFSA. I would also make sure that you're in a degree-seeking program in graduate school. Unfortunately, due to the nature of graduate school, some programs might not be eligible for financial aid. A lot of certificate programs, for example, are classified as non-degree programs, and they generally aren't eligible for financial aid. Or sorry, there are always exceptions, but kind of depends on your program. So make sure that you know what type of program you're in, and checking with the financial aid office to see what type of program that you're in to see if it's a financial aid eligible program or not is also very important. I've been talking nonstop. I don't think this will help very much, but we'll see. Sorry about that. Answer. There you go. Let's go ahead and go to the next question because we only have a little bit of time left. Can I be eligible for the Blue and Gold Scholarship if I am a current student? I was a freshman last year and wasn't able to be full-time because of a family issue. Is it possible to get a scholarship now? Generally, when it comes to the Blue and Gold Scholarship, that's called an admission-based scholarship because it's based off the information submitted at the time of admissions. So financial aid's answer is a favorite answer is it depends, because unfortunately it does depend. Every student situation is different. So if you were initially offered the Blue and Gold Scholarship but weren't able to meet its disbursement requirements due to that situation, there is a scholarship appeal process. I do recommend going through that process to see if you qualify for that appeal, because if you were initially offered it at that time but just couldn't meet the requirements, I would recommend doing that, so that way you can see if you can regain eligibility. Very similar to a financial aid appeal process, you would have to submit supporting documentation. So if you did have that family issue and you have documentation for that, that would be helpful in that appeal process. So definitely see if that is your situation or not. If it's a situation where you just unfortunately were not offered the Blue and Gold Scholarship to begin with, unfortunately, the answer for that would be no. That I do know from our many talks with the scholarship office. If unfortunately at the time of admissions you just were not eligible to receive the Blue and Gold Scholarship, unfortunately you would not be eligible for it in future semesters because it has to be initially awarded at that initial time of admission. And if you didn't receive it then, you unfortunately won't be able to receive it in a future semester. So in that situation, I would just definitely recommend seeing with the scholarship portal to see if you can apply for that, or look for donor-funded scholarship portals outside scholarships as well. So definitely check with that. But once again, this donor-funded scholarship portal for the 25-26 period is closed. It will open up again on October 1st, but that'll be for the next cycle. So that would be for like fall 26, spring 27, when it opens on October 1st. So definitely recommend doing that for that time frame, but it really wouldn't be of immediate assistance for your current semesters. Hopefully that helps though. Donor-funded scholarship application shows reviewing and status. That means it's in that review process. I would just recommend keeping an eye out for that. I know they have been giving decisions soon. I know that some decisions went out as of June 9th. So it could be a situation where yours may be coming up. I'm not entirely too sure. I do recommend just keeping an eye on your account just to see, because once it changes, you'll know the status of it. Because when it's in the reviewing process, that means it's being reviewed. If it shows as accepted, that means you've got it. If it shows as, unfortunately denied, that means you didn't get it. So at the very least, that it's showing review means that you're in that reviewing process for consideration. So definitely keeping an eye on your account just to make sure that you still keep reviewing that status is important, because if you get that approval status, you only have 3 weeks to accept it and complete what you're supposed to do in order to keep that scholarship. Because if you don't do that, that scholarship will go to the next person. And once that happens, you won't be eligible for it since you just lost that eligibility. So definitely keeping an eye out for it. I did leave our scholarship email in the chat, so I do recommend sending them an email to see if they can give you any additional information, as they would be able to review that as well. Hopefully that's able to help. This will probably be my last question I'm able to answer. I just want to thank you all so much for all these questions. But let's go ahead and do this final one. Hopefully it's a good one. Let's see here. What is the plan if you are doing Summer 1 classes and have not received financial aid? Can I do a scholarship or do a payment plan? So if you're doing Summer 1 classes and aren't receiving financial aid, it could be a situation where you haven't done the 24-25 FAFSA, so I recommend doing that. One thing that's important is that financial aid is kind of a broad term, but it envelops all things that are financial aid, so that's scholarships, grants, work study, and yes, unfortunately, even federal student loans. So if you were packaged for summer and it's only loans, that technically is financial aid. You're never required to accept them, but they are there as offers if you're interested in. So if it's anything else aside from that and you're not interested in those forms of financial aid, you definitely can do a payment plan. Generally, Student Accounts has their payment plan options for your period enrollment in the MyLeo Pay section of your student resources. So if you go there, you're able to enroll in different payment plans depending on your situation, so you can do that. Now, you're also able to contact Student Accounts directly to see if they can give you any more information, to see if there's anything else aside from those payment plans listed in your MyLeo Pay section of your student resources. So I'm going to go ahead and put that information on there, their email. So I do recommend giving them an email. That's student.accounts@tamuc.edu. I don't know if they changed their email like we have. Ours is eTamu now. There may be, but I know that those under the TMUC still are having their emails forwarded to the new one for some time, just so that way people get used to the change. So I do recommend giving them an email if they can see if there's like any other type of payment plan available on your account. But generally, you would have that option to enroll in a payment plan. So I do recommend doing that if you look at your financial aid and don't want to do anything. That's perfectly normal. Personally, I would only advise taking loans if you truly need them. If you don't need them, then there's no sense of getting into loan debt. So I totally understand if you see your financial aid, see loans, and like, I don't want that. Don't blame you. I've had to make some decisions like that as well back when I was a student. It seems like actually, it is over a decade ago. I'm old. Or not. I don't know. But let's see here. that was a pretty good question, but we'll do one last question. Just because I don't think I answered this question, someone hasn't answered this question before, so this one will be the final one. When is the deadline for accepting loans and grants for 25-26? So the deadline for 25-26 is, it depends. Financial Aid's favorite answer. So it kind of depends on some things. Generally, some things don't have deadlines. So, for example, if you have a federal Pell Grant, for example, that won't have a deadline. That's an entitlement to you if you received it. Some things, like the Texas Grant as well, if you have that offered on your account, that kind of depends, because the Texas Grant is something that is limited in funding, so it'll be offered on your account for quite some time before you need to accept it. But when it gets close to that period, you'll actually start receiving emails pretty much saying like, oh, hey, you have this Texas Grant, definitely accept it as soon as you're able to, so that way you can, accept these funds. Because if you're not going to accept it, after like a long time frame, odds are our grant coordinators will go ahead and cancel them and give them to funds for students who will accept them. So Texas Grant kind of depends, but you will be notified in advance before that happens, because they will reach out to you to try to see if they can get you to accept it. Because if you've been offered such a grant, it's a good grant. For example, just putting it plain, it's a very good grant. So they definitely want you to accept it if you've been offered it initially. So they'll contact you, let you know. Generally, for loans, it will kind of depend. Currently, for federal student loans, students aren't able to accept them just yet. The reason being is that there is bills being talked about on the Department of Education side of things that have like July 1st deadlines, for example. So depending whether or not these bills take into effect, we may need to batch update some forms of financial aid to account for those bills. So at the moment, some things you can accept right now, but scholarships, you can definitely accept those still. So scholarships, much like the Pell Grant, they won't go away if you've been offered them. They're on your account until you accept them, unless they are the donor-funded scholarships. If they're like admission-based scholarships, like the Blue and Gold, they're on your account. But the donor-funded ones, where other students are also applying for them, you have those 3 weeks to accept them. So there is a difference. But generally for scholarships, I just recommend accepting them. They're scholarships, they're free money. Can't hurt to accept them. They're not subject to those FAFSA potential rules based off those potential bills. So you're able to accept your scholarships at this point in time if you have them. But generally for loans, typically what happens is that after the start of the semester, typically after 14 days, offered loans cancel. You can have them reoffered to you, though. They just generally cancel just because after a certain point from today, it's like, oh, you're not interested, it cancels them, but they can just be reoffered to you at any point as long as you let us know. So definitely, it kind of depends on your situation. It depends on what types of financial aid you have available for you for 25-26, but definitely keep an eye on your accounts for some of those things, because donor-funded scholarships have 3 weeks to accept them. Other things don't have those time frames, but still, it's always important just to keep an eye on your account for those. So that's going to unfortunately cover it for today. I hope that answered a lot of your general questions. I actually feel bad because I still see there's more questions popping in at this point, but hopefully that's those questions are already answered in regards to your financial aid stuff. I want to thank you again for coming here today for our Keeping It Real session. Hopefully next time it'll be me and another person. Hopefully they'll be able to keep me in check and stop me from rambling all the time and assist with the questions and assist with the websites and that sort of stuff. But, I want to thank you all for coming again today. Definitely let us know if you have any questions. Set up those appointments, send up those emails just so that we can have that review of your accounts if we need to have that deep dive onto your personal situation. But if those general answers were able to answer those general questions, then I definitely hope that was of good help to you. So just want to thank you all again for coming, and go Lions!